Welcome to our deep dive into Acalanes Union High School in 1941. We're going to explore this yearbook, the Acalane, and really try to get a feel for what it was like to be a student during those times. It's fascinating, right? World War II is looming, but here in California, there's this whole new high school bursting with energy.
It's an interesting paradox, isn't it? A time of global uncertainty juxtaposed with the optimism of a brand new school.
Exactly. And just flipping through this yearbook, you can already sense both that youthful excitement and a hint of the anxieties of the time. I mean, did you catch the school was built on a former tomato patch?
Imagine that transformation from tomatoes to textbooks. And speaking of transformations, the foreword really sets the stage. They talk about the school evolving from a dream to a plan, and finally to this bustling reality for the students.
Right. And they even included this poem by Betty Rose Clark that captures that sentiment perfectly. At first, it was a dream in the hearts of the people. Now, a reality. This is our school. But it wasn't just about the building. There's a real sense of pride in the school's modern design, especially the fact that it was built to withstand earthquakes.
That's a smart move in California even back then. But beyond the physical structure, it's clear they were building something special, something with lasting impact. They were already talking about future expansion in the foreword. It seems like they had huge ambitions for Acalanes right from the start.
Absolutely. And speaking of ambition, let's talk about leadership. The yearbook mentions the Board of Trustees, and get this, they worked without pay. Wasn't that unusual even back then?
It does raise an interesting question about their motivations. It suggests a deep commitment to education, possibly even a sense of civic duty. The fact that they met monthly shows a hands-on approach, too.
That's a level of dedication you don't see every day. And of course, the yearbook is dedicated to the principal, Mr. Warburton, who's clearly a guiding force in those early days.
Definitely. And we can't forget Miss Lottie, the Dean of Girls, and the other faculty members listed. They were shaping the school's culture just as much as the administration. But what about the students themselves? Building a student government from scratch couldn't have been easy.
You're telling me.
Hmm.
And they had to get creative with funding, too. It's fascinating that student body card sales paid for everything.
Huh.
Dances, sports, uniforms, you name it.
It speaks to a real sense of ownership and responsibility. These students weren't just attending Acalanes. They were building its traditions from the ground up.
And it's cool that they list all the student body officers and their roles in the yearbook. We even know who was in charge of the lost and found.
Talk about attention to detail. But let's move on to the heart of student life. The clubs and activities. This is where things get really interesting.
Oh, yeah. The variety is amazing. It wasn't just the usual academic clubs. They had everything from photography to checkers to a geometry club.
Now that's one I'd like to know more about. Was there a sudden surge in geometry enthusiasts back then? Maybe it reflects a growing interest in STEM fields.
That's a great point. I wonder if it has something to do with the technological advancements happening at the time. But there's more. The photography club developed their own film. The nature club was studying rats. Talk about hands-on learning.
It makes you wonder, what would you have been drawn to back then? Which club speaks to your interests?
Oh, that's a tough one. So many options. But we can't forget about the Girls League and the Boys Federation.
These groups were more than just social clubs. The Girls League focused on friendship and organizing events, while the Boys Federation had a community service aspect. Their annual cake sale provided for needy families, which gives us some insight into the social and economic realities of the time.
That's right. It reminds us that even amidst the excitement of a new school year, there were families struggling, especially with the shadow of war looming.
Absolutely. But amidst those challenges, there was also a thriving creative scene at Acalanes. The music program, for instance, was already making a name for itself.
Oh yeah, that band is incredible. They started small, performing at local events like the Lafayette Horse Show, and by 1941 they were earning superior ratings at state competitions.
That's quite a journey, and it seems they were serious about maintaining their high standards. They even had a formal charter and regulations for the band.
It's clear that music played a huge role in the school's identity. And speaking of creativity, the drama club was pretty active too. They put on some ambitious productions, including Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
Not bad for a first-year school, and they weren't afraid to experiment with original plays. Take the album, for instance, written for Lincoln's Day. They even used a picture frame as part of the staging.
Talk about thinking outside the box. They also had workshop plays and a final comedy for the seniors, once in a lifetime. The yearbook mentions the stage manager, the technical director, even Miss Merkel, the advisor. You get a real sense of the collaborative effort behind these productions.
It's fascinating to see how seriously they took their craft. It speaks to a school culture that valued creativity and expression. And speaking of expression, we can't forget about the blueprint, the school newspaper.
Ah, yes, the blueprint. It had a humble beginning as a single page in a local paper, but it eventually evolved into a mimeograph publication.
Thanks to Miss Woodyard, the advisor, and Tom Dowd, the editor, they turned it into a successful venture. It's a testament to their dedication and the power of student journalism. But amidst all the clubs and activities, I'm curious about the students' deeper thoughts and reflections. What were they grappling with beyond the day-to-day happenings of high school life?
That's where the point of view section of the yearbook comes in. It's a goldmine of student essays and poems that give us a glimpse into their inner world. And some of these pieces are surprisingly relevant even today.
Absolutely. Take Florence Endersby's essay on education, for example. She argues that it's not just about rote memorization, but about developing critical thinking skills to solve real-world problems. It's a pretty sophisticated argument for a high school student, wouldn't you say?
Totally. And she doesn't shy away from challenging her fellow students. She urges them to use their education to improve America and the world. Pretty powerful call to action, especially considering the context of the time.
Her words resonate even now, don't they? It's a timeless message about the responsibility that comes with knowledge. And then there's Barbara Boomer's essay on happiness.
Oh, yes. That one really stuck with me. It's so relatable even 80 years later. She compares what makes a cat purr to what makes humans happy.
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? And she comes to the conclusion that happiness is more about mindset than external circumstances. She even suggests that you can find happiness after tragedy if you look to the future.
It's a beautiful and insightful perspective, especially given the uncertainties of the time. But there are other gems in this section, too. Jim von Tellerop's piece about the California landscape, for example, he finds beauty in the simplest things, like a yellow field.
It's a reminder to appreciate the world around us, even amidst chaos and uncertainty. And then there's Bill Hall's piece on pruning, which is surprisingly profound. He connects the act of pruning to a deeper, unknown purpose.
It's almost like he's talking about the process of growth and self-discovery, isn't it? And let's not forget Charles Saunders' piece, "'Tis the Noon of a New Day," which beautifully captures the cyclical nature of time from summer to autumn.
His words evoke a sense of continuity and renewal, even as the world seemed on the verge of something new and perhaps terrifying.
And lastly, we have Florence Erdahl's Query. It's a short piece, but it perfectly captures that feeling of anticipation and possibility that comes with a road trip. It's like she's hinting at the journey these students are about to embark on, both individually and collectively.
Each of these pieces offers a unique window into the minds of Acalanes students in 1941. They were thoughtful, introspective, and clearly aware of the complexities of the world around them. But they were also teenagers, eager to experience life and all its possibilities.
Exactly. They were balancing youthful optimism with the weight of history. And that's what makes this yearbook so fascinating to explore. It's a time capsule of a generation on the cusp of adulthood, facing a future full of both promise and uncertainty.
And now let's shift gears and dive into the world of Acalanes athletics. This yearbook gives us a glimpse into the very first sports teams at the school. Are you ready for some underdog stories and early triumphs?
Okay, we've covered the school's founding and some of the big picture stuff, but now I want to get to know these students as individuals. What can you tell me about the kids themselves?
That's where the student portrait section of the yearbook really shines. Each photo has a little blurb next to it. Their nickname, a favorite saying, or maybe their ambition. It's like getting a snapshot of their personality.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me some highlights.
Well, we have Edward Babe Allen, whose ambition is listed as storekeeper with a question mark.
Oh, interesting.
And then there's Fred Allen, who simply writes censored for his ambition. Makes you wonder what he had in mind.
Huh, that's great. Maybe he was too scandalous for the yearbook committee? What about the girls? Any standout blurbs?
Rube Phoebe, a Militegi, wants to be a foreign secretary. Sounds glamorous. While Barbara Charlie Barnett dreams of a Pepsodent smile. It's fascinating to see the range of aspirations from the practical to the, well, sparkly.
It really does paint a picture of the times, doesn't it? Pepsodent smile and all. Did you find any other little gems in these blurbs?
Oh, tons. Jim Blackbart says his saying is, "I don't talk," with a question mark. Maybe a bit of a rebel. And Frida Hope Bartmouth aims to put zip into art. I love that. Mary Bennett cryptically mentions finding something disgusting but doesn't elaborate. And Mary Bisson, well, she's got her sights set on becoming a school teacher.
It's like you're reading a high school gossip column. I can almost picture these kids hanging out in the hallways, cracking jokes and dreaming about the future.
Exactly. And some of them are clearly just having fun with it. Robert Moodbourne's ambition is to be a good waiter. Again, with that question mark, is he serious or just pulling our leg?
I love that. It reminds us that these were real teenagers, full of life and personality, even with a war looming on the horizon.
And their sayings offer a glimpse into the pop culture of the time. Mary Dean Bradley exclaims, "Oh, pshaw, so dramatic," while Joelis Joe Bryant greets everyone with a, "Hi, Droop Snoop."
Droop Snoop, that's fantastic. I've never heard that one before. Must have been some 1940s slang. What about the boys? Any memorable quotes from them?
Ralph Rastus Corder's favorite song is Barnacle Bill the Sailor, and his ambition is simply get married. Straight to the point. And Emma Jean Emmy Coda dreams of being a torch singer. I wonder if she ever got her chance to shine on stage.
It's incredible how much personality shines through in just a sentence or two. But it makes you wonder, what happened to these kids after graduation? Did they achieve their dreams? What challenges did they face? It's like we're getting a glimpse into their lives just as they're about to take flight.
It's bittersweet, isn't it? Their youthful optimism is palpable, but we know the world was about to change drastically. Who knows how the war impacted their paths?
It's a good reminder that history is made up of individual stories, each one unique and full of possibilities.
Speaking of stories, there's another section of the yearbook that tells us something about the community surrounding Acalanes, the sponsors page.
Ah, yes. The businesses that supported the yearbook. It's like a little time capsule of local commerce in 1941.
Exactly. We get a sense of what businesses were thriving back then. It's a mix of retail stores, service providers, and even a few professional offices. It paints a picture of a diverse and dynamic community.
Okay, spill the beans. What kind of businesses caught your eye?
Well, there's the classic Ben Franklin stores, your quintessential five and dime. I bet you could find just about anything in there. And for a caffeine fix, there was the Lafayette coffee shop.
I can practically smell the coffee and hear the chatter. What else?
For all your car needs, there was Bob Dewey's Richfield Service and Murray's Tire and Battery Shop. And if you were feeling musical, Riley's Music Store was the place to be.
It's interesting to see how these businesses catered to the everyday needs of the community. It gives us a glimpse into the rhythm of life back then.
And some listings hint at the era's unique characteristics. The Diablo Paint and Furniture Co., for instance, suggests a time when people often refurbished their furniture rather than buying new.
That's a great observation. It speaks to a different consumer culture, one focused on practicality and making things last.
And of course, we can't forget the Orinda Theater, a reminder of the importance of entertainment and social gatherings in a time before television and the internet.
It's amazing to think how much has changed in the decades since then. But through these sponsor listings, we get a window into the heartbeat of a community on the cusp of change.
It's a testament to the resilience of everyday life, even amidst global turmoil. Businesses were running, people were going about their routines, and a new high school was finding its footing.
It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just about wars and major events. It's about the lives of everyday people, the communities they build, and the dreams they hold dear.
Speaking of dreams, our journey through the Acalane isn't over yet. There's one more section we need to explore: the sports pages.
Okay, I'm ready to cheer on Acalanes' first generation of athletes. What kind of athletic spirit did these pioneers have?
We'll find out in part 3 of our deep dive.
All right, time to hit the playing field. What can you tell me about the early days of Acalanes athletics?
Well, keep in mind this is a brand new school, so they're building their teams from scratch. And in basketball, they had a bit of a mixed bag: sophomores, juniors, and even a freshman who made quite a splash.
Wait, a freshman on varsity? Who are we talking about?
Marlon Van Brocklin. He was apparently quite flashy on the court and ended up leading the entire league in scoring.
Wow. Talk about making an entrance. A freshman leading the league. That's unheard of. I wonder what kind of pressure that put on him, being so young.
It must have been intense, but he clearly rose to the occasion, and the yearbook describes the team as talented and scrappy. Even though they were young, they had that fighting spirit.
I love that. And it wasn't just about the players on the court. The yearbook mentions the coach, Mr. Matson, the team managers, even the timekeepers. It really does take a village, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it wasn't just the varsity team finding success. The C team, coached by Mr. Walgren, also had a great season and uncovered some future stars like co-captains Eddie Armanino and Willis Reed. It seems Acalanes basketball had a bright future ahead. Now, what about baseball? Were they as strong on the diamond?
Well, the yearbook suggests the baseball team had potential. especially with a strong infield and pitching staff returning the following year. They highlight Stub Van Brocklin, Lyle Palmer, Bob Hinkson, Jack Coover, and Don Parsons as players to watch.
So another Van Brocklin on the roster. It seems athleticism ran in the family. It's amazing to think about these young athletes unknowingly laying the foundation for Acalanes' future athletic legacy. Did any other athletes or teams particularly catch your eye?
Well, I was really struck by the track team story. They had to contend with some pretty bad weather that year, but still managed to have a memorable season.
Ah, yes, and we can't talk about Acalanes track without mentioning Roger Harding, their star discus thrower.
Right. He set a Northern California record. What was his throw? Something like 140 feet.
140 feet, 212 inches to be exact, and to think he achieved that despite the rain hindering their practices. That's some serious dedication. That record-breaking throw really put Acalanes on the map for track and field.
He must have been a sight to behold launching that discus. It's inspiring to see these athletes pushing boundaries and achieving greatness even in a brand new school.
Yeah.
And speaking of inspiring, let's not forget about the Girls Athletic Association.
Absolutely. I love that every girl was eligible to join. It speaks volumes about the school's commitment to inclusivity and providing athletic opportunities for all students.
And they didn't limit themselves to just a few sports either. They had basketball, tennis, badminton, archery, volleyball, even baseball.
It's clear that Acalanes fostered a well-rounded athletic program encouraging both boys and girls to pursue their passions on the field and court. It's a far cry from some of the limitations placed on women's athletics in previous generations.
It really is. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Acalanes Union High School in 1941, what stands out to you the most?
You know, it's been an incredible journey through this yearbook, the Acalane. We've witnessed the birth of a school, the hopes and dreams of its first students, and the dedication of its faculty and community.
It's amazing how much we can glean from a single yearbook. It's more than just names and photos. It's a glimpse into the lives of real people on the cusp of adulthood, facing a future full of both promise and uncertainty.
And while the shadow of World War II loomed large, this yearbook captures a sense of hope and possibility that transcends time. It's a powerful reminder that even amidst global turmoil, life goes on, communities thrive, and young people dream big dreams.
Well said. And for you listening, what will you take away from our deep dive into Acalanes? What resonated with you the most? Maybe you're inspired to explore your own local history or uncover a forgotten yearbook from your family's past. You never know what fascinating stories are waiting to be discovered.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.